Ciao guys, sorry, I'm just waiting on Facebook. Ciao, hi, hey, hola, amigos, konnichiwa, namaste, greetings. It's your boy M.K.S here, back in another video. I just had some technical issues with with Facebook. I'm a bit behind schedule because I'm uploading quite a few videos quite quickly because I know I like to do these in 4 parts, but I'm hoping to go to a social club thingy, games, social/games group. So um, and I want to have a bath before I go today, as it's a Friday. My bath's on Fridays, on a nice life story. But yeah, I'm behind schedule because I had a few technical issues with Facebook and also for whatever other reasons. I was trying to take too much on. But anyway, welcome to the third penultimate part, basically, of Celtic to have a partnership with Asia or Asians, even from the diaspora. Hope you enjoy it. Yeah, Facebook. I had to go back. I had to go back and redo the title and description and all that kind of stuff. Um, so anyway, here goes. These are pointers number 21 to 30 as per usual. Hope I don't forget anything. And on that note, point number 21. After thinking it'd be quite a sad irony, I guess, if I forget things in point number 21, because I think 21 again. I'd love for Asians to find out the history of Celtic. And one of the things I mentioned, actually, I should have got this out of the way first, perhaps, but anyway, one of the things I mentioned in part 2, in point number 13, was about my fears. Fridays, my fears about our league-winning trophy being taken away from us, heaven forbid, because the claim by, as I wrong, I truly call them Farts, or their real name Hearts of Midlothian, Hearts for short. But again, I'm surely call them Farts for some reason. Being a bit of a kid, they claim that our fans ran onto the pitch, which they did, but they claim that the game was finished early, therefore been abandoned. And apparently, according to the rules, which happen in Europe, Scotland is in Europe, and therefore Celtic and Hearts and Hearts are both in Europe, technically. But what happened in the game in Europe, as we would say, in a European league, basically in another country in Europe, is the game got abandoned, and therefore the other team were given a 3-point victory. Heaven forbid that. I hope that doesn't happen. But I was thinking, what if that did happen? That would be a nightmare scenario. Probably shouldn't focus too much on my fears. But yeah, hopefully that won't happen. And I know we often try and go for 10 league titles in a row. This number 10 league titles in a row, both us and the rankers, as I call them, rather maturely again. But yeah, none of us have managed to do it. But we've both been stuck on 9. But Celtic have done it twice. But yeah, I'd love for Celtic to do that. So far, we are halfway there. As I mentioned before, I was thinking of the song by Bon Jovi, where it says, "We're halfway there, living on a prayer." But problem with always forget the lyrics of songs, but always struggle to get them in the right order. But yeah, I'd love for Asians to find out about the history of Celtic, and yeah, to read up and find out about the history of Celtic, and hopefully start to follow and support Celtic as much as possible, which would be pretty cool. Moving on, point number 22, as I say, hopefully Celtic will be able to retain the trophy and hopefully go on and actually win 10 in a row. Maybe that's a bit of pressure, putting a lot of pressure on the team to win 10 in a row. As I say, I'd be gutted, I'm sure, like any Celtic supporters, if that trophy was taken away from us. But another thing, actually, I was thinking of saying this in point number 21, but hey ho, there you go. In point number 11, I forgot to say, and I mentioned at the end of the video, but I know I do waffle, but people probably don't have the attention span to listen to me waffle that much. But I do try and get it to the point quicker. But I do struggle taking things too literally or whatever. As I struggle to get to the point. But I'd love to know from you guys out there, anyone out there watching this mad guy talk, or listening to this mad guy talk, or whatever, or both. Talking about taking things too literally and getting to the point, or struggling to get to the point. What do you think the Celtic to Asia partnership, if it got up and running, what do you think it could entail or should entail. How do you think, basically, how do you think Celtic and Asian nations and Asian communities, the Asian diaspora, or how you pronounce it, what do you think we could do to mutually benefit? So how can Celtic benefit Asia and Asian communities, I say, people from the diaspora, how you pronounce it, how do you think Celtic could benefit them, and how do you think Celtic could benefit? What do you think a partnership should entail? What do you think a partnership could and should entail? I'd love to know. Point number 23, I'd love for Asians to follow and support Celtic, both in terms of as fans, being fans of and following Celtic, but also in terms of funding and fundraising for and investing into and sponsoring basically Celtic and helping it financially. So Asian companies, organisations, associations, or whatnot, even like the Asian Development Bank, maybe Asian nations themselves, even like Japan, which has a link with Celtic in a way. Japanese organisations and even the Japanese government, maybe, and India, China, the Indian partnership. Maybe Celtic could help them to improve relations with each other, and at the same time, and benefit Asian organisations and associations and businesses and whatnot, and at the same time benefit from investment from such. So yeah, I'd love for them to invest into and sponsor Celtic, and I also hope Celtic will benefit financially, as well as helping Asia again for mutual benefit to benefit financially. I'd also love for I'd say for Celtic to benefit financially generally by having more fans, therefore being more attractive towards investors and sponsors, especially. Because I suppose people will want to, organisations will want to sponsor a club which has many fans around the world. I suppose it doesn't always work like that, because I think Man United have a lot of fans around the world, but they still haven't managed to get back to the top, I guess. Not yet, anyway. Probably put the kiss of life into them, I guess. But yeah, the most important thing for me is not necessarily seeing Celtic having money in the bank and financially benefiting that way, but seeing it winning trophies from its own point of view as a club, but also helping others. And on that note, I'd say, again, towards a mutual benefit, I hope Celtic can tackle poverty and support businesses, organisations, teaching, training, and basically financial empowerment for people across Asia from all socio-economic, financial positions or whatever. So from the poorest right way to the top. So even organisations like Reliance Industries, Tata, and others benefiting, Alibaba and others benefiting from Celtic, whilst the club hopefully benefits from increased investment, sponsorship, and that kind of thing, having more academies and sports clubs and that kind of thing, fan clubs and whatnot. As we call them, CSCs, Celtic Sports Clubs. Yeah, I hope it'll be a mutual benefit, and as I say, I hope Celtic can tackle poverty and alleviate suffering and promote things like animal rights, women's rights, and things like education and teaching for girls and that kind of thing. Across Asia through the Celtic Foundations, I hope they can do a lot of stuff through football for good, and hopefully work even with FIFA and UEFA, especially FIFA, to bring football more to Asia as well, for instance, and Africa as well. Side note. Number 24, I hope that as many people from across Asia as possible will support Celtic and, again, hopefully benefit from such. Number 25, I hope that, especially those in Asia who support republics, for instance, I hope for all possible Asians to invest into, sponsor, and just generally support and follow Celtic, and, again, for the club to benefit nations across Asia, especially republics, but Asia generally, again, all possible citizens across Asia. And maybe there could be a link with like republics. I still hope that does give me a bit of a dilemma, but I still hope that, I still hope that even monarchies like Brunei, I think that's a monarchy, a sultan, Saudi Arabia, and other Arab nations as well as other Asian nations generally, I'd love for them to invest, whether they're monarchies or republics, but I favour republics more, and Celtic has a link to republicanism. Those who support republics as well, as a side note, if that's the right way of putting it, I'd also love to support Celtic. Number 26, also Celtic, standing against imperialism. In fact, I guess the main reason why I support Celtic, if not the sole reason really, is because of the anti-imperialism and the fact they went through imperialism. I know Celtic does have a link with Palestine and that kind of thing, but maybe as a club and even the fan base, a bit of a controversial one from me, but I wonder if they could talk about trying to make peace between different nations, rival nations, and all that kind of thing, and maybe not taking one side over the other. Again, that's a very controversial one, about being neutral. Who would have ever thought talking about being neutral would be so controversial? But talking about bringing people together from Palestine and Israel, for instance, as hard as that would be, even India and Pakistan maybe, to play football together. Again, how football can build a bridge. Maybe I'm being naive, but given that so many nations in Asia were colonized, and hopefully a lot of people in Asia are anti-imperialist and people of the Asian diaspora or whatnot. Again, I hope the club will get more followers and supporters and that kind of thing for that reason. And hopefully Celtic can again help Asian nations and help with reparations. And I'd love for Celtic to be tax exempt. I've talked about it in the past, because obviously that would benefit the club, but also partly because it would mean if China, India, or any other nation that was colonized by Britain invests into and sponsors Celtic, I think it would kind of be unfair if any profits they made would have to go to the British government, which, given that Britain colonized them in the past, again, another controversial view, but that makes it. Also, I think Celts should boycott the military and instead support support Asia. I'd love for Celts to be able to say, we don't want to pay our taxes towards the military, and I don't think Celts should join the military, but instead I think we should spend that time and energy benefiting the club, but also benefiting Asia and Africa. Obviously, I'm focusing more on Asia this month and in June, as I was in April. But yeah, so instead of joining the military, we could spend that time benefiting the club, fundraising for the club, fundraising for the activities in Asia and that kind of thing. So benefiting the club on the pitch and off the pitch, but also benefiting people from Asia and other developing nations, Asian nations and other developing nations. And instead of giving our tax money as Celtic fans to the military, towards things that go towards militarism, weapons trade, and things like that, which I think would be counterproductive, given again that Celtic fans are anti-imperialist generally and pro-republicans, republic supporters, and also given that the military is the opposite side of that, and also the support of Palestine. How can you support Palestine at the same time give money towards something that is used arguably for the other side, things like the air base? Again, I'm going into a very controversial thing, but just being as honest as possible. But yeah, I'd love for us to use that money and time and effort and energy, attention, time, money, effort, energy, and all that kind of thing towards benefiting the club and also benefiting people in developing nations and also island and also Asian nations and developing nations. In this case, Asian nations. Maybe say, a Celtics fan being able to donate our money, our tax money, to things like the Asian Development Bank and projects that help girls get a good education, girls and boys, I guess, help children to get a good education, help STEM education, and different projects that help people in Asia, like even game makers, entrepreneurs, young people to learn financial skills, learn to run a business, help tuck shops, lemonade stores, and things like that. Given my dyslexic creativity, I guess, perhaps. Yeah, I don't know what you think. Whether you think I'm being naive, I hope you won't be too harsh. But as ever, please comment what you want in the comments. But yeah, I'd rather, instead of spending that money on the royal family, militarism, the royal family, and that kind of thing, we could spend that money and use that attention, time, money, effort, energy, and whatnot into benefiting the club and benefiting people across Asia. And again, investors and sponsors, knowing that they would get tax relief by investing in Celtic, that would be another one, dream of mine. again, I don't think they should have to pay profits towards the British government, which historically colonised them. I know it's not the same government, but I know going back in the past. But anyway, I'm going to move on to point number 27. I'm not going to talk all night, but point number 27. Something actually, I meant to say my point number 26, but I forgot. But also, as I was waffling away, I lost a chain of thought. Also, I could have said it point number 23. A point I mentioned quite a lot of times is like, I don't know, I'm quite repetitive sometimes, most of the time, unfortunately. But a point I mentioned quite a few times is like organisations to those with the pockets, the bank accounts, basically, to match what we give to charity. So match the donations to charity. It reminds me of something like in the past with match the fine for Palestine. So in the past, Celtic were fined for flying Palestinian flags in Israel in a competition, and they matched the fine, and I think they doubled it, and then they donated it to a Palestinian charity. But yeah, just generally, again, I try and be as neutral as possible, controversial one, but trying not to offend anyone, but just being as honest as possible at the same time. Whatever we give away to charity as a club, I dream that we would get like sponsors, as many of them as possible, to sponsor. So if we manage to raise 100 million for good causes, including in Asia, to help like children's education, entrepreneurship, financial empowerment, and that kind of thing, financial education, financial empowerment, and whatnot. People learning to budget, build businesses and whatnot, and that kind of thing. So if we financially empower people in Asia and tackle poverty, I dream that we'd be rewarded by sponsors matching what we give away. So again, if we gave away, let's say, 100 million, like the City Group, Qatar Sports Investments, the PIF, and sort of any other organisations from India, China, or wherever else, if they had the money to pay and they said we can afford to take that risk, and they all gave us that 100 million we give away, we would have, like, if there were 10 investors, we would have 10 times what we give away minus the amount we give away. So in that case, it would be about 900 million. If we had 100, it would be, I think, 9.9 billion. But yeah, also we would then be able to do more good, as well as winning on the pitch, buying the best possible players, developing the academies and that kind of thing. We would also, including in Asia, of course, we would also be able to do a lot more good for charity. So it'd have a positive, rather than a vicious circle, it would be a positive circle, I think, hopefully. Talking about rewards as well, the more Celtic does in Asia to help people in Asia, hopefully it'll come back to us and we will benefit from that good work. And maybe there could be awards for those who help to promote the club, including across Asia as well as other parts of the world. Again, hopefully mainly for focusing on Asia, mainly focusing on Asia. Sorry, embarrassing there. Moving on, I was thinking hearts instead of hearts, or vice versa. Anyway, sorry. Point number 28. I hope the club can turn negative situations into positives, like, for instance, heaven forbid, I hope there won't be flooding or illnesses, diseases, natural disasters generally, and things like across Asia. I'd rather there wasn't, but there won't be. But if there are, the club could perhaps help with, like, the DEC, the Disasters Emergency Committee. Why do I lose my ability to speak when I make videos? The Disasters Emergency Committee or other such organisations to help to tackle those problems and hopefully limit divisions across Asia, and again turn negatives into positives, even as about supporting Asian scientists to work on scientific ways to try and limit illnesses, diseases, natural disasters, and those sorts of problems, making peace across Asia and all sorts of things like that. Number 29, I love for my fellow Anglo-Indians and other Eurasians and mixed race people generally to, including Malaysians and other groups, mixed race people to train with and get into train with Celtic and get into football, and again be involved in playing, practicing, coaching, managing, and just generally being involved in football, and maybe even investing into and sponsoring Celtic or even donating to the club in the future, and especially its foundation. And number 30, I hope my videos aren't too cringeworthy. But once again, if you made it this far, thanks so much. I hope you'll share the video, and I hope people will share the video, especially with people who are interested in either Celtic and or Asia. And also, I wish for a similar for Tanford. And also, I'd love to know, as I say, what you think could be a great partnership between Celtic and Asia. What could they work on? What could Celtic do for the Asian diaspora, including those from Asia itself and the diaspora? And what could Asians do to benefit Celtic? And that kind of like training together. Which are my ideas are your least or most favourite, or what you think of each pointer I mentioned. I'd love to know that as well. And on that note, I'm out. Peace and love.